everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Susan.
I'm Tab.
And this is the official first episode of MCU Explained WandaVision. I have to be really careful since I'm in the Sanctum, and the Sanctum has a lot of magical powers, so I can't move around that much. So yeah. Anyway, so first off, thank you guys so much for sending such excellent questions. I was super impressed with the questions.
We've had great questions.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
In case you don't know, WandaVision is a TV show, limited series.
I'm so excited for it.
Premiering this coming Friday on Disney Plus, and it's rumored to be a 9-episode series.
Gotcha. And 2 episodes are dropping on Friday. So there's also that. So now we're going to recap some of the characters that we know are going to be showing up in WandaVision at some point during the 9-episode season and where we last saw them in the MCU.
Okay. So when we last saw Wanda, it was an Endgame. But prior to that, Wanda lost Vision at the hands of Thanos in Infinity War.
Not gonna lie, I still cry when that happens.
Yeah. And then she herself was dusted. So she was gone during the blip and came back through the Hulk snap in Endgame, hell-bent on revenge, and showing off for the first time really how powerful she can be.
Thanos literally had to rain fire on his own army to get her to stop. So just remember that it was such an excellent moment for her character to see Wanda finally tap into that power. And it's just so cool. So that was a huge moment to really kind of step into what she could be capable of in the MCU moving forward, and specifically WandaVision. So yeah, I'm really excited to see more of that.
And in case you didn't guess from the stuff I just said about Wanda, Vision is dead. The series does take place after Endgame. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the questions we got are related to that, and we will go through them. Susan and I was telling her before, it really bothers me that we don't know what happened to his body because he didn't dust. There's just an android body in Wakanda somewhere. Did anyone even find it? Did they do something with it? So we have no idea. Mm-hmm. And then we're also going to see Darcy, who we last saw in Thor: The Dark World. She is one of the scientists. She has not been around for a while, so I'm very, very excited to see her returning to the MCU. And then we have Jimmy Woo, who we last saw in Ant-Man Ant-Man and the Wasp, enforcing Scott Lang's house arrest and trying to catch him. And it appears, from what we can tell, that he has likely joined up with Sword, which is something else that it looks like WandaVision will be revealing. And we'll talk about that more.
Yes.
And then last, we have Monica Rambeau. But the last time you saw her, she was a little child. She's Maria Rambeau's daughter in Captain Marvel. If you're not familiar with her, she does eventually get powers, although canonically, it does not happen till she's an adult. So when we see her, I think it's very likely that we will see her getting the origin of her powers.
There was that super awesome clip during the Ravens game on Sunday where you finally saw Monica Rambeau, and she is wearing also a sword necklace in the clip, and Wanda asks her where she's from, and she says she doesn't know. So that was a whole other thing that was pretty awesome that debuted during NFL playoffs.
Yeah. And then we have a new character, Kathryn Hahn. Her character is listed as Agnes on IMDb, which is not a known character in Marvel. However, Agnes is a remarkably close name to Agatha. And Agatha Harkness is a witch who was a mentor to the Scarlet Witch in the comics.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about the just notion of it possibly being Agatha Harkness, because in that episode that we've seen a lot of clips from, there's those Halloween costumes where Wanda and Vision are essentially dressed like this, which is their like 60s, 70s look. I'm bad with decades. And in those same clips, Agnes is wearing a witch costume. So if that is any sort of hint to like true selves or something that they're doing in that particular episode, she very much could be the MCU version of Agatha Harkness.
Yes. Which would be awesome. And then
Yeah.
we do know, we also know that Evan Peters is in the cast. You know him from Fox's X-Men, and he played Quicksilver. Of course, I would be delighted if he was a new version of Quicksilver in the MCU, but I think that's pretty unlikely and that he'll probably be a different character.
Agreed. However, the one thought that I did have on that matter is like, what if he is Quicksilver, but she brings him back wrong somehow?
Oh,
You
that's
know?
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Uh,
she doesn't understand why he doesn't look like, her brother did in the MCU, but maybe he is talking with a Russian accent or something. I don't know. But
that's interesting.
I thought it'd be interesting to like play with that, especially if we're going into some of her powers that have yet to be revealed in the MCU. And
Mhm.
if they're going to play with them in any sort of interesting ways, which I really hope they do, because she has a lot of powers to explore. And as you were saying before we started recording, they're only going to be able to introduce so many because she is one of the most powerful characters in the whole Marvel universe in
Yeah.
all aspects of it. So like the MCU is only going to be able to do so much to like explain everything she can do. So they're probably going to have to focus very specifically on certain powers that she has.
Yeah. I was even saying it's not even how did she bring Vision back, and we'll get into it's which one of her powers did she use to bring a version of Vision back.
Right. Exactly. So there's going to be a lot to unpack, I think, with this show. So understandably, you all sent some pretty amazing questions, like really good. We mentioned that at the beginning of the show, some really good questions. And we're going to try to answer some of them. But to be honest, some of them we were going to answer already in this intro episode. So forgive us if we like don't do a shout out to you specifically because we're just already going to answer that particular question.
Okay, so we were going to do this anyway, but on Facebook, Wendy Polson asked if we could set up the context for WandaVision. Are they in hiding and don't know it? What do you think? Why do you think they are in Leave It to Beaverland? I've been so confused about the premise of this show.
Well, we know a couple of things already going in. One, based on the Jimmy Kimmel interview with Elizabeth Olsen, we know that this show is actually going to cover several different decades. So it's going to start in Leave It to Beaverland, but that's not where it's going to remain. In fact, in several different clips, you've seen them move throughout decades. There's very specific clips where Wanda is pregnant and she's clearly in a more like 70s looking outfit or 60s looking outfit. Again, I'm bad with decades. Like
I think it starts with the 50s.
it starts with the 50s.
And then the 60s would be like Bewitched. And so the 60s
Gotcha.
would be the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, and there are in each episode and each not episode because we don't know that. We don't know how they're going to move through time, but in each time shift there's like going to be a shift to a different style of sitcom. So those are the things that we know. And then in terms of
As far as the premise of the show goes, we believe that it is heavily influenced by House of M, this comic right here by Brian Michael Bendis.
yes,
Yes. And also The Vision, which I also have that by Tom King, but I took the jacket off because I like this better. And this is what's under the book jacket.
I love that. And both those comics are freaking amazing.
Really good.
House of M was like one of the first, like, because I used to be totally DC. House of M was one of the first like Marvel comics I ever read. So that just shows, and I went backwards after that, but like obviously I got obsessed because House of M just first off shows you what Wanda can do and kind of also makes you understand why she does what she does. Like she's just a very relatable character, especially in House of M, which a lot of people might disagree with me on, but I related to her in House of M. So I don't know what that says about me.
So House of M starts after the Vision has died. And Wanda has created a fake reality because one of the powers of hers that we have not got into yet is that she is a reality manipulator. She can make new realities. She can make sideways, upside down realities. She can basically make anything she wants.
Yeah.
So she's created a world where Vision is alive and where they just had babies, which obviously Vision cannot have biological children because he is a synthezoid and has no way of doing that. And then within that, I believe it's Professor X who first breaks her out of that, so we won't see that. But she does give everyone their deepest desires and create a bizarro reality where everyone has exactly what they want, and she has her twins. And through this, she's also, because Hawkeye is dead at the start of this, she resurrects Hawkeye.
So for just to like quickly bring in this particular question, someone asked in the in our questions whether or not she might potentially bring back Nat. It is a possibility for her to bring back Nat in something like this because she could. And if if she can tap into giving anybody their deepest desires back, like the Avengers all love Nat and considered her a part of their family, so why wouldn't she want to do that for them?
And also worth noting that when they were making Endgame, it was a very last minute decision whether it would be Hawkeye or Nat who made the sacrifice on Vormir. So knowing that Hawkeye had a show coming up anyway, it seems like they were prepared to resurrect him somehow.
Yeah, totally. And they could have easily used this to resurrect Hawkeye, much like they did in House of M. So why wouldn't they use it to resurrect Nat? Maybe that's a point moving forward, because also Tab pointed out before we started recording that Scarlett Johansson has been very silent about MCU stuff specifically.
Not really saying that she's not coming back or would never or anything like that. Very quiet.
So
yeah. And then in the Vision, Scarlet Witch is alive, but is no longer with Vision. And Vision decides that what he wants more than anything is a very normal life. So he moves to the suburb and he creates a wife that is a synthezoid like him, and twin children who are also synthezoids. And they try to fit in this neighborhood, and it goes really, really badly. I don't want to spoil this one too much because if you're inclined to read this at all, it is fantastic.
It is fantastic. And it's also like, it's not new, but it's definitely newer than House of M, where it only came out a few years ago. And it is very, very well written and very well done. And he is not with Wanda in this particular comic. So if you're looking for like a WandaVision, but I think they will have pulled from this for inspiration on specifically Vision, and then also like in my head how Vision interacts with other people, because like in that particular book he does have to like attempt to fit in, and that seems like what he's trying to do in several of the clips we've seen from WandaVision.
There's even a clip where Wanda says she just wants to fit in and be like a normal family, and that to me like really says, oh, this is like the Vision. They're trying to be normal people living a suburban life.
Totally.
A couple of you asked about time and time shifts and a period of time that this might be taking place. My gut is that force field that we've seen that Wanda created, because that's also one of her powers that we haven't gotten into in the MCU yet. She makes force fields. I have a feeling time moves differently in there than it does in the area around it.
Gotcha.
So,
that makes a lot more sense. Because I was trying to figure it out too, and I was like, is she speeding up time because she also can mess with time. So, but that actually is a lot simpler of an explanation than I tried to come up with. So let's go with that one, because I bet that's correct.
Yeah, because I can't imagine those sword probably Sword agents are camped out outside that bubble for very long.
Right, for sure.
From Mediocre Jedi on Instagram, do you think Wanda's comic mutantness will be introduced? It's kind of complicated since he is referring to the comics. Currently in the canon, Wanda was never a mutant,
Right.
and neither was Quicksilver.
Yeah.
And they aren't Magneto's children. That was a lie.
Yeah. They rewrote their origin story a little while ago. So
yeah, she's descended from witches. She's got pieces of the pandemonium in her. Like her powers are coming from a lot of different places, but she is no longer considered a mutant.
Yeah.
Will they show her other powers? Oh yeah.
They're definitely. I mean, they have to at least show them in order to have her bring Vision back, since we know he's alive in the show. Yeah. So they have to at least bring back or bring up one of her powers, and that is that ability. However, we should kind of touch on, there are several ways that she could potentially bring him back based on whatever powers they choose to go with in the MCU. Personally, I think it's going to have to do with multiverses, because we know that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is coming up. They've already told us that that Scarlet Witch is a character on it, and that WandaVision and the Loki show are going to lead directly into that movie. So I do think that her power of however they do the shift in reality, however they do her, and we haven't even talked about the twins yet, but however they choose to do Vision coming back to life, whatever other characters come back to life, how the twins are incarnated in, like, I don't know how, because they're not born. So however the twins come to exist, we're going to have to see which powers they choose to use, whether she's taking souls or just tapping into the multiverse and stealing people from it.
Yeah, or brainwaves, but that's usually Vision's thing, is to steal brainwaves.
And maybe she has Vision help her out there with that.
Yeah, she might. So the twins exist in the comic. She creates them as babies, but they die when reality gets all, I mean, honestly, normalized. And that's devastating for her. And then they are reincarnated and become Speed and Wicca, who are basically the same powers as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, but they are young Avengers.
Mm-hmm. So I hope we see the twins in this show. We know that time moves differently. We also know that a Hawkeye show is coming out with Kate Bishop. So.
Yes. Oh, and we know that Cassie Lang is now older.
We do know that. And we also know that there was an Endgame scene shot with Tony Stark's daughter.
Yes. Played by Catherine Hahn. Or no, Catherine Langford.
I was like, Catherine Hahn is the Catherine I couldn't think of the other, 5 minutes ago.
Catherine Langford from 13 Reasons Why and Spontaneous was cast as Tony Stark's daughter, and I hope they keep her, because I think that is amazing casting.
Yeah, for sure. So we're hoping that they set up Young Avengers, but that's an entirely different episode of an entirely different series once we get done with WandaVision. So
on Instagram from Evil Rascal, which X-Men will pop into WandaVision?
Which X-Men?
Yeah, or I guess it's more of, do we think that any X-Men are going to show up? Is this where they show up?
I mean, I honestly haven't thought about it, because I feel like this would be a good way to introduce the X-Men, but I feel like it would be like a season-ending teaser, and I don't think the X-Men are going to have much to do with this show.
I don't either. At most, I believe Wanda may do something that causes the X-Men to be in this universe or activates mutants. Because in House of M, it ends with her taking away all the mutants' powers.
Yeah.
So the MCU loves to do opposites and like mirror and similarity. So that's where that could come in.
I completely agree with that. That's kind of what I meant with like season ending event versus like, I really don't think we're going to see any X-Men in this show.
From Instagram again, Strickland Art, which TV homages are you guys looking forward to the most? to the most?
Oh man. Honestly, the 90s, because like
Me
that
too.
is, yeah, because like that was when we were kids.
Yeah.
So those are the sitcoms we super watched and like meant something to us as kids. So like honestly, the 90s.
In the 90s. I'm also because Elizabeth Olsen is obviously the younger sister of Mary Kate and Ashley, and they were on Full House, and there's
Yeah,
just like a fun like connection there.
right.
I'm also excited for the Bewitched one. I did watch Bewitched reruns as a kid, quite possibly because I was named after the daughter.
And I actually am excited for like the Leave It to Beaver, I Love Lucy type
Yeah.
because I loved I Love Lucy. I still love I Love Lucy. And so that type of 50s comedy like resonates with me for that reason too. So I guess like the 50s and the 90s for me. Though for the fashion, I can't wait for the 70s because I'm obsessed with like 70s fashion, even though I'm bad at decades. So I could be talking about 60s. I don't know.
Or 80s.
Or 80s. I'm talking about like the high-waisted bell-bottom jeans with like the flowy tops and the super long straight hair. That's usually 70s.
That's usually 70s.
Okay, cool.
From King West 05 on Instagram. Has either
Hey Edgar, what's up? That's my friend Edgar.
Hey Edgar.
Yeah.
Has either character had alternate costumes before? I assume you mean outside of the MCU because we've seen variations on their costumes since their introduction,
Yeah.
especially Wanda.
Especially Wanda. Wanda has evolved 3 times at least in the MCU.
Vision has been all kinds of crazy looks in the comics.
In the comics, Vision has evolved quite a bit. In the comics, though, Wanda usually keeps the same type of look.
Mm-hmm.
You know, red, and usually red strapless. And we haven't really seen in the MCU. Oh my gosh, my magic is taking over. Her headpiece.
Yeah,
hasn't really happened in the MCU yet. We see it in the Halloween clip, so we're going to see it in the show. But that's definitely her comic book look.
Yes. There is a version of Vision. I forget what he called himself, but he is all white, white cape, white everything, white stone, and kind of see-through.
Yeah, that's what some people thought was going to happen with him once he had the Mind Stone pulled out in Endgame, since he went like grayscales. That was like a fan theory that he was going to come back as that version.
He still has time to be that version.
I know. He could still be that version. We could still see that version.
If we didn't call you out specifically, sorry. Like we said, a lot of people ask the same kind of question or the same genre of question. So
or we felt like we answered it during our summaries. And again, if you want to ask that question again because you really felt like we didn't answer it, feel free to put it back in the comments and we'll try to answer it in the next episode in a better way, I guess.
Our next episode will be after WandaVision premieres that following week. So feel free to hit us up. We'll ask for questions again on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. So feel free to ask us questions about what you saw on the show or share your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
The initial reviews have been very, very good. So that is promising.
I'm so excited when they came in because I really thought that this show might not that I knew I would love it, but I didn't necessarily think it would be something that would get reviewed well.
It could be polarizing.
Yeah, it could be. And people could get very confused. But you know what? We're about to enter a whole new realm of the MCU, and that is super exciting. Yeah.
A whole new confusing realm.
A whole new confusing realm with so many multiverses and so many powers and so many things that you just kind of have to accept and not have explained to you because that's what comic books are. Anyway.
I would say as you're going to watch it, don't expect for things to be explained in the first thirds of the show.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't expect it to make sense right away. Just enjoy what you're watching, move through it as an audience member, the same way we're all going to be moving through it. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching our very first full episode of MCU Explained. This is the WandaVision series. So we are so excited to talk more about it when we come back next week after the show has premiered. So Again, keep those questions coming. Like us and subscribe on all major social media platforms, and we will see you next week. So hopefully they did do something with it, or maybe that's the intro of the show,
Maybe.
like because they don't address what happened with that android body. Like, but also he was with Cap. Like, there was that shot at the end of Infinity War where Cap's like sitting there. So his body is there. So maybe Cap took it.
Maybe they buried it in Wakanda.
I don't know, but like, because the ones who survived are like, because also Bruce was there, and Bruce, helped create him. So I'm hoping maybe Bruce had some sentimentality and took it. I don't know, but that also really bothered me. So hopefully we find out where that came from, or where it went, and how it's back now.